The oath that I have taken is the same oath that was taken by George Washington and by every president under the Constitution. But I assume the presidency under extraordinary circumstances never before experienced by Americans. This is an hour of history that troubles our minds and hurts our hearts. I have not sought this enormous responsibility, but I will not shirk it. My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over. Our Constitution works. Our great republic is a government of laws and not of men. Here, the people rule.
The reservoir of trust in the country had been drained. The institution of the presidency was tarnished, if not judged marginally illegitimate. Because of his basic human decency, his honesty, he was able to, just by his demeanor, reestablish that trust in our country.
Here's a man who didn't seek the office, was called upon to serve, agreed to serve, was never elected, but was clearly the right man at the right time for the United States of America. He took tough actions, actions that he knew were not going to be politically popular, but were the right thing to do for the country.
He had the values of a Midwesterner, and the Ford family was very well known, very respected for their honesty, their principles to business. They were a typical family. There were four brothers. One went on to be a lawyer, one was a dentist, one was a legislator, and one ran the family business for his father. Those values were instilled, and he never wavered from them. That moral compass was made out of steel. The man never wavered.
All of a sudden he's managing, about the largest, most important organization in the world, the United States government. He's got to operate as an executive, he's got to delegate, he's got to be able to deal with numerous kinds of problems, foreign policy, defense and national security, the economy, and they may come one right after another during the course of a day. So he had to adjust and adapt to all of that, but he did very effectively.
I think what was fundamentally driving him was what was best for the country, and I believe one of the first decisions he made tells that more than anything else, and that was the decision to pardon Richard Nixon, because it probably cost him the election because of the bitterness toward Nixon. And was it the right decision? No question it was the right decision, but what a tough one to make for his personal fortunes.
Jerry Ford was interested in solving the problems that were put before the country. So you never had to worry that he was considering political angles or personal benefit. Getting into office was an act of grace that God bestowed on him, and it was a duty that he had to carry out. And so he didn't know of focus groups, and he didn't worry about public opinion polls.
He was much more a legislator than an executive, but every day he was there, he got better and better as an executive. And one that blended his natural inclination as a legislator to work with people and see people and reach across the aisle and discuss things with the need of a president to have the place function in a way that was reasonably efficient.
President Ford understood that you don't have to be an enemy to be an adversary. You can be a political adversary without being a political enemy. He understood that you can disagree agreeably, and that you can get together with your political opponents. After fighting all day long, you get together with your political opponents in order to get things accomplished.
I mean, this is the kind of guy he was. I get up and I'm reading the Washington Post, and Tip O'Neill is calling Jerry Ford everything but a decent human being. So I go downstairs and I ask, where's President Ford? He's playing golf. Playing golf. Who's he playing golf with? Tip O'Neill.
He had enormous respect for the Congress. He devoted 25 years of his life to it. And he got along, well with folks on the other side of the alley, and Tip O'Neill were great buddies. But a lot of people forget is that he was to some extent a rebel in his own time. This is the guy who came back from World War II and ran for Congress and defeated an incumbent. This is the guy who overthrew Charlie Halleck as the Republican leader in the House. He was not a go along, get along kind of a guy. I mean, he worked with others, he had great respect with others, but you know, he was also a very hard-charging, successful political leader.
Now, foreign leaders had not met anyone like him, and for them to meet an American president who went right to the point, who promised you only what he could deliver, and who would then deliver what he had promised, that was an amazing experience. The first achievement was to create an impression and a reality of total normalcy, so that other countries couldn't take advantage of a period of confusion. He then concluded a number of negotiations, including the Helsinki Accords, for which he took a terrific beating when he was in office. But today people recognize that it was the absolute turning point in the Cold War. Secondly, he took the Mideast peace process and he moved it into the foreign policy field by helping broker an agreement between Israel and Egypt, which laid the basis for the later Camp David Accords.
This particular president came into office at an extraordinarily difficult time in the history of the country. And he succeeded in, not in being elected, but in restoring our pride and confidence in ourselves and in our institutions. He healed the nation. The nation was broken. He healed our psyche.
At the end of the Vietnamese conflict, the Congress had just refused to grant aid that President Ford had asked for. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee came down and met with President Ford. And they said, it's over. We recommend unanimously that you pull American troops out now. And he listened quietly to them, and he said, you forget one thing. The United States has a commitment to the thousands of Vietnamese who put their trust, their confidence, and their honor in the hands of the United States. And so he kept the troops there to literally the last conceivable moment to get as many Vietnamese out as possible. That to me was Gerald Ford. It was not about Gerald Ford. It was what was best in the circumstances. And that was an act of nobility that I think is just remarkable.
In his administration, he showed that by the calm management and steady purposefulness, this country, even in a crisis, in a severe crisis, can fulfill its mission.
A group of us got our wings, if you will, under Jerry Ford and shared those remarkable experiences in the mid-'70s as we came out of the Watergate period, made the transition back to what we really expected of our government and of our White House. And Jerry Ford was responsible for all that. He could take great pride, I felt, in recognizing good talent and people who were able later to take advantage of what they'd learned at his knee and move on and play major roles in the history of the nation. Dave Broder, I thought, always put it well. He said Jerry Ford was the kind of president the American people always said they wanted. And that's what he was.
He got up in the morning and didn't look through glasses to say, what would it look like for me? He looked through a prism that said, what would it look like for the world and for America? And how ought we to be behaving? Our country was truly fortunate that he was president when he was president and was able to direct the country and guide it in a way that, by his example, left the country in a better place in the world and left the world in a better place because of our country.
There is no way we can go forward except together, and no way anybody can win except by serving the people's urgent needs. We cannot stand still or slip backwards. We must go forward now, together.